The champagne flutes caught the candlelight like liquid gold. The private dining room at Waitress, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, where reservations required 6 months' notice and connections. Money couldn't buy, hummed with the quiet confidence of people who shaped markets before breakfast. At the center table sat Victor Ashford, 52 years old, CEO of Meridian Global Capital, net worth $4.7 billion. Tonight, he was closing the largest private equity deal in Wall Street history, a $9.2 billion acquisition of a European pharmaceutical conglomerate that would make him not just wealthy, but untouchable. Victor commanded attention without demanding it. Silver hair swept back with casual perfection. A navy Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's cars. His smile was measured, his handshake firm, his laugh timed for maximum impact. He was the embodiment of American success, the orphan from nowhere who built an empire through brilliance and grit. Or so the story went. Across the dining room, moving between tables with practiced grace, Dr. Jasmine Porter cleared a dessert plate and refilled a water glass. 29 years old, tall and lean, with intelligent brown eyes that missed nothing. The black server's uniform she wore was immaculate. Her movements were efficient. Her expression was neutral. No one in that room knew that Jasmine Porter was a board-certified trauma surgeon, that she'd spent 4 years at Johns Hopkins, 2 years at Massachusetts General, and the last 6 months working the most dangerous shift in medicine, undercover investigation for the FBI's healthcare fraud division. No one knew that Victor Ashford was her target, and no one knew that, in exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds, everything was about to change. Victor raised his glass, commanding attention from the 12 investors, attorneys, and executives surrounding him. Gentlemen, ladies, to new partnerships, to global expansion, and to profits that matter. The table erupted in polite applause. Glasses clinked. Phones discreetly captured the moment for social media posts that would trend by morning. Jasmine approached with a carafe of sparkling water, her footsteps silent on the Persian rug. As she leaned forward to refill Victor's glass, she caught his reflection in the polished silver. His eyes were unfocused. A thin sheen of sweat had appeared on his upper lip despite the room's perfect climate control. His left hand trembled slightly as he reached for his wine glass. Professional instinct kicked in. Jasmine's gaze sharpened, reading symptoms invisible to everyone else. Pallor beneath expensive bronzer, shallow breathing masked by confident posture, the slight pulling of his collar, classic symptom of someone whose body was screaming warnings his brain refused to hear. Victor stood to continue his toast, but the words caught in his throat. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion, then to something else entirely. Fear. His wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against bone china with a sound that silenced the entire room. Victor grabbed the edge of the table, his knuckles white. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then his eyes rolled back, and Victor Ashford, billionaire CEO, collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Chaos erupted. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped against hardwood. A woman shouted for someone to call 911. The maitre d' rushed forward, phone already in hand, shouting instructions to staff. But Jasmine was already moving. She dropped to her knees beside Victor's body with the fluid precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Her fingers found his carotid artery pulse weak, erratic, failing. His lips were turning blue. Cardiac arrest. Maybe 90 seconds before brain damage became irreversible. "I'm a doctor," Jasmine announced, her voice cutting through the panic with surgical authority. "Someone get me a first aid kit, now. And tell 911 we need ALS response, not BLS. Move." Her hands were already working. She loosened Victor's tie, opened his collar, checked his airway, started compressions. 30 chest compressions, precise depth and rhythm, then 2 rescue breaths. The restaurant manager appeared with a red medical kit. Jasmine didn't look up. AED. Is there one in this building? Yes, by the, get it, 90 seconds or he's dead. As her hands worked to keep Victor Ashford's heart beating, Jasmine's mind was calculating something else entirely. Because as she'd opened his shirt to begin compressions, she'd seen something that shouldn't have been there. Surgical scars, fresh ones, maybe 3 months old, advanced facial reconstruction, rhinoplasty, mandibular contouring, the kind of work that didn't just enhance features, it changed them completely. And lower, partially hidden by his undershirt, the faded edge of what looked like a laser-removed tattoo. The kind inmates got in federal prisons. The kind people paid fortunes to erase when they wanted to disappear into a new life. Victor Ashford's body held secrets. And in approximately 7 minutes, when the paramedics arrived and took him to the hospital where Jasmine had admitting privileges, she was going to uncover every single one of them. Because Jasmine hadn't been serving dinner tonight. She'd been hunting a ghost, and the ghost had just collapsed at her feet. The ambulance sirens faded into Manhattan's symphony of noise as Jasmine rode in the back, her hands still working to keep Victor Ashford alive. The paramedics had wanted her to stay behind, but she'd flashed her medical credentials and her FBI consultant badge, and suddenly there were no more questions. Victor's vitals were stabilizing. The portable defibrillator had shocked his heart back into rhythm. But he remained unconscious, his body fighting battles he couldn't name. Jasmine studied his face under the harsh LED lights of the ambulance. Even in medical crisis, even stripped of consciousness and control, Victor Ashford looked perfect, too perfect. The kind of perfect that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and required months of recovery. Her phone buzzed. A text from her FBI handler, Agent James Carter, status. Jasmine typed one-handed while monitoring Victor's IV drip, target in custody. MTH emergency. Surgical intervention likely, will maintain cover. The response was immediate. Be careful. This man is dangerous. Jasmine almost laughed. Dangerous. If James only knew what she'd already seen. Manhattan Memorial Hospital's emergency department was controlled chaos. Jasmine had worked here during her residency, before the FBI recruited her for something that required both medical expertise and the ability to lie convincingly for months at a time. She scrubbed in as Victor was prepped for emergency catheterization. Dr. Raymond Mills, the attending cardiologist, barely glanced at her credentials before nodding approval. She was known here, respected. No one questioned why a waitress had surgical privileges. Inferior wall, MI. Mills muttered, studying the monitors. Clean occlusion of the right coronary artery. Should be straightforward, but his history is weird. Weird how? Jasmine asked, pulling on sterile gloves. No medical records before 5 years ago, nothing. No childhood vaccinations, no dental work, no emergency room visits, like he just appeared fully formed at age 47. Jasmine's pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. Maybe he had a different name. Immigration records. Mills shrugged. Says he's from Nebraska, born and raised. But there's no birth certificate on file. No social security number issued before 2019. He paused. You know what that usually means. Witness protection, identity change. Someone running from something or someone. The surgery proceeded with mechanical precision. Jasmine worked alongside Mills, clearing the blockage, restoring blood flow, stabilizing the damage. but her mind was elsewhere, assembling pieces of a puzzle that grew more disturbing with each passing minute. As they closed, Mills gestured to Victor's chest. "You see those scars? Hard to miss. That's not cardiac surgery, that's cosmetic, high-end work. Someone spent serious money making this man look different." Mills met her eyes. Why would a billionaire CEO need a new face? Jasmine had theories, none of them good. But what Mills didn't know, what no one in that operating room knew, was that the man on the table had already been dead once. Officially, legally. And Jasmine was about to prove it. Victor Ashford woke 6 hours later, in a private recovery room that cost $12,000 per night. Jasmine was waiting, still in her surgical scrubs, a tablet in her lap, his eyes fluttered open. Confusion first, then recognition, then something else. Calculation. "You," he croaked, his voice rough from intubation. "The waitress." "Doctor." "Jasmine Porter," she corrected gently. "Trauma surgeon. You had a heart attack, Mr. Ashford. Massive myocardial infarction. You're lucky to be alive." Victor tried to sit up, then thought better of it. "My phone. I need my phone. The deal can wait." "Your heart can't." Jasmine leaned forward, her voice professionally neutral. "We need to discuss your medical history, Mr. Ashford. There are some irregularities." She watched his face carefully. The micro-expressions, the tells. This was the moment. The pivot point where everything would either accelerate or collapse. Irregularities. Victor's smile was practiced, but his eyes were sharp. Dangerous. "I'm not sure what you mean, doctor." Jasmine pulled up an image on her tablet, a medical scan, enhanced and annotated. These scars, extensive facial reconstruction, rhinoplasty, mandibular contouring, orbital repositioning, dermabrasion. This is approximately 400,000 worth of surgical modification performed roughly 3 to 4 months ago. Victor's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Prey recognizing a predator. "I had some work done," he said carefully. "Is that a crime?" "No. But lying on medical disclosure forms is a federal offense, especially when those forms are required for insurance fraud investigations." Jasmine set the tablet down. "Want to know what else I found?" She didn't wait for permission. "Laser tattoo removal. Advanced technique, probably German clinic. You had at least 3 large tattoos removed from your torso and arms. Prison tattoos, if I had to guess. The kind inmates get in federal facilities." Victor's breathing had accelerated. The monitors betrayed what his face tried to hide. "And then there's this." Jasmine pulled up another image. "Your fingerprints. I lifted them during the surgery. Standard protocol for unidentified patients. Guess what came back when I ran them through the system?" The silence stretched like a blade. "Nothing," Jasmine continued. "Absolutely nothing. Victor Ashford's fingerprints don't exist in any database. Not DMV, not passport records, not anywhere. It's like Victor Ashford never touched anything before 2019. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "But you know what's really interesting? The facial recognition software. I ran your pre-surgery photos through advanced reconstruction algorithms. Tried to reverse engineer what you looked like before all that expensive plastic surgery." Jasmine turned the tablet toward him. On the screen was a computer-generated image. A different face. Harder, crueler, younger. "Does this man look familiar, Mr. Ashford? Or should I call you by your real name?" Victor Ashford stared at the image of who he used to be. And for the first time since waking, his mask cracked completely. "Who are you really?" he whispered. Jasmine smiled, not warmly, not kindly. the smile of someone who had just cornered their prey after months of hunting. I'm the doctor who saved your life. And I'm the person who's going to uncover every secret you've buried under that expensive new face. She stood, tucking the tablet under her arm. Get some rest, Victor. Or whatever your name actually is. We have a lot to discuss when you're stronger. As she reached the door, his voice stopped her. You have no idea what you're doing. Jasmine turned back. Try me. That man in your reconstruction image. He's dead, officially, legally, dead. Killed in a prison fire in 2018. There's a death certificate, dental records, everything. Except he's not dead. He's right here, in this bed. With a new face and a new fortune and a new life built on whatever graves he left behind. Victor's laugh was bitter. You think you're the hunter here, Doctor? You think you've caught something? I know I have. Then you're about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between catching something and being able to hold on to it. His voice was ice now. All pretense gone. I have lawyers who eat federal investigators for breakfast. I have politicians who owe me favors. I have enough money to make you disappear so completely your own mother won't remember your name. Jasmine's expression didn't change. You're welcome to try. But here's what you don't know about me, Victor. Or whatever you're really called. She walked back to his bedside, leaning close enough that only he could hear. I'm not here by accident. I didn't just happen to be working at that restaurant. I've been tracking you for 6 months, following the money, following the bodies, following the trail of a dead man who somehow came back to life with billions of dollars and no one asking questions. Victor's face had gone pale. So threaten me all you want. Call your lawyers. Call your politicians. But know this, I didn't save your life tonight because I'm a good person. I saved it because dead men can't stand trial. And you, Victor Ashford or Marcus Levine, or whatever name you wore before that one, you're going to stand trial for everything you've done. She straightened, her voice returning to professional neutrality. A nurse will check on you in an hour. Try to get some rest. Your arraignment is going to be exhausting. Jasmine walked out, leaving Victor Ashford, if that was even his name, alone with his secrets and his new failing heart. Outside the room, she pulled out her phone and texted Agent Carter. We need to talk, now. This is bigger than we thought. The response came immediately. Conference room, 1 hour. And Porter? Yeah, good work. But watch your back. Men like him don't go down easy. Jasmine pocketed her phone and headed for the elevator. She knew James was right. This was the dangerous part. The part where cornered animals became killers. Because what she didn't know yet, what she couldn't know, was that Victor had been planning for this moment since the day he'd faked his own death. And his contingency plan was already in motion. But what Victor Ashford didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Jasmine Porter had her own secrets, her own scars, her own reasons for hunting men who reinvented themselves while leaving bodies in their wake. Because 5 years ago, Jasmine's sister had been one of those bodies. And the man in that hospital bed, with his new face and his stolen billions, was about to discover that some ghosts don't stay buried. Some ghosts become surgeons, and some ghosts come for revenge wrapped in a white coat. The FBI field office conference room smelled like burnt coffee and tension. Jasmine sat across from Agent James Carter and 2 federal prosecutors she'd never met before. The wall behind them was covered in photos, documents, and red string connecting dots that spanned 5 years and 3 continents. At the center of it all, 2 faces. One belonging to Victor Ashford, billionaire CEO. The other to Marcus Levine, convicted murderer, officially dead. Walk us through it again, said Jennifer Moss, the lead prosecutor. From the beginning, Jasmine pulled up her tablet, displaying the medical scans and reconstructive analysis. Victor Ashford doesn't exist, not really. The man in that hospital bed is Marcus Levine, 47 years old, convicted in 2016 of securities fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. He was serving 25 years at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. She swiped to the next image. In December 2018, there was a fire in the prison laundry facility. 3 inmates died. One of them was officially identified as Marcus Levine through dental records. Except it wasn't him, James Carter interjected. Except it wasn't him, Jasmine confirmed. Someone paid a lot of money to fake his death. New dental records. A body that matched his approximate height and weight. Perfect execution. She pulled up another file. 6 months after the fire, a shell company incorporated in the Cayman Islands acquired a struggling tech startup for $8 million. That company, within 3 years, became Meridian Global Capital. Current valuation, $47 billion. The second prosecutor, David Reyes, leaned forward. And you're saying Victor Ashford is Marcus Levine because of this? Jasmine displayed the facial reconstruction analysis. I ran his current face through reverse engineering algorithms, stripped away the surgical modifications. The results matched Marcus Levine with 94.7% probability. That's not enough for a conviction, Moss said. No, but this is. Jasmine pulled up a DNA analysis. I collected blood samples during his surgery, ran them against Marcus Levine's DNA from his original arrest in 2014. Perfect match. The room went silent. Jesus Christ, Reyes whispered. You're telling me a convicted murderer faked his death, got plastic surgery, and built a multi-billion-dollar empire? Not just any empire, James Carter added, standing to point at the wall of evidence. Meridian Global Capital specializes in pharmaceutical acquisitions. They buy struggling drug companies, strip their patents, and resell them to the highest bidder. 3 of those companies had experimental treatments for rare diseases, treatments that could have saved thousands of lives. He tapped a photo. Instead, Meridian buried those patents, literally destroyed the research. Why? Because they also own stock in competing pharmaceutical companies. Companies that make billions from patients who have no other options. Jasmine felt her chest tighten. This was bigger than identity fraud, bigger than financial crimes. How many people died because he buried those treatments? She asked quietly. James Carter didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was flat. Our conservative estimate is 47,000 people over the past 4 years. That's just the documented cases. The number hung in the air like smoke. And tonight, Moss said, he was about to close a $9.2 billion acquisition of Europa Pharma. They've got breakthrough treatments for 3 different cancers in final trial stages. Let me guess, Jasmine said. He was planning to bury those too. According to our financial intelligence, yes. He'd already negotiated deals to sell Europa's patents to companies that would shelve them indefinitely. Combined with his existing pharmaceutical holdings, that would give him effective monopoly control over treatment options for approximately 200,000 patients. Jasmine's hands clenched into fists. She thought about her sister, Maya, 23 years old when she died, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The experimental treatment that might have saved her had been purchased by a venture capital firm and buried 3 months before her diagnosis. She'd never known which firm, never had the resources to investigate. Until now. James, Jasmine said carefully, What was the name of the company that bought the ALL treatment in 2019? Agent Carter flipped through files. His face went pale. Phoenix Capital Holdings, a subsidiary of Meridian Global. Jasmine finished. Victor Ashford's company. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Porter, Moss said gently, if you're personally connected to this case, we need to know. Now. Jasmine met her eyes. My sister died 5 years ago from a disease that had a cure that was buried by the man in that hospital bed. Is that going to be a problem? That depends, Moss replied. Can you remain objective? Jasmine thought about Maya. About the 3 months of watching her sister waste away. About holding her hand as she died. Both of them knowing that somewhere, in some locked vault, was the research that could have saved her life. I've been objective for 6 months, Jasmine said. I infiltrated his social circle. I worked a service job for minimum wage plus tips. I smiled while he and his associates treated me like furniture. I saved his life tonight when every instinct I had screamed to let him die. She stood, her voice steel. So yes, I can remain objective. Because I don't want revenge, I want justice, and I want every person he killed to be counted, every life he destroyed to be named, every dollar he stole to be recovered. Moss studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this by the book, everything legal, everything documented. Because if we screw this up, a man who's killed 47,000 people walks free. He won't walk, Jasmine promised. Because I'm going to make sure he can't. If you've ever lost someone to a disease that had a cure that was buried by corporate greed, drop a comment below. Share their name. Let the world know they mattered. Because this story isn't just about one villain. It's about a system that values profit over people. And it's time we changed that system together. Stick around, because what happens next will show you that sometimes the only way to catch a monster is to think like one. And Jasmine Porter is about to cross a line she can never uncross. Over the next 72 hours, Jasmine Porter became a different kind of surgeon. Instead of cutting into flesh, she cut through lies. Instead of stopping bleeding, she followed money. Victor Ashford Marcus Levine remained in the hospital under observation, which was FBI code for detained without officially being detained. His lawyers had arrived within hours, an army of silk suits and Harvard degrees, all demanding his immediate release. But Jasmine had anticipated this. She documented every medical reason to keep him hospitalized. Unstable cardiac rhythm, risk of secondary infarction, complications from emergency surgery, all true, all legally bulletproof. While Victor's lawyers fought paperwork battles, Jasmine fought a different war. She discovered something during her months undercover. Victor Ashford was paranoid about data security. He never sent sensitive information electronically, never trusted cloud storage. Everything important existed in physical form, locked in a custom-built safe in his penthouse office. A safe that required biometric authentication, fingerprint and retinal scan. A safe that only Victor Ashford could open. Or someone with his fingerprints and a very detailed photograph of his retina. Jasmine had both. The plan was insane. The kind of insane that got agents fired or arrested. But James Carter had signed off on it, because they both knew the truth. If Victor's lawyers got him released before they secured the physical evidence, it would disappear forever. 47,000 people didn't have time for proper warrants and lengthy investigations. So at 3:47 a.m. on the third night, Jasmine walked into Victor's hospital room. He was awake, staring at the ceiling, his face gaunt and gray. "Can't sleep?" she asked, checking his monitors. "Would you, if you knew what was coming?" Jasmine adjusted his IV, her movements professional. Depends. If I'd killed 47,000 people for profit, I probably wouldn't sleep much at all. Victor's laugh was hollow. You think you're so righteous, so pure, but you have no idea how the world really works. Educate me. He turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the criminal, but something human underneath, something broken. I was nobody, he said quietly. Marcus Levine was a kid from Detroit who made one good trade and thought he could play with the big boys. They crushed me, destroyed me, sent me to prison for crimes that were standard practice for everyone at my level. So you faked your death and became the thing that destroyed you. I became smarter than them, richer, better, and you know what I learned, Doctor. The system doesn't care about people, it cares about profit. Those 47,000 people, they were dead already. The system killed them the moment they got sick without being rich enough to matter. So you made sure they stayed dead. I made sure I survived. Victor's voice was ice. And I'd do it again, every single time. Jasmine nodded slowly. Then she pulled out a syringe from her pocket, a mild sedative. Enough to put him under for exactly 18 minutes. What are you doing? Victor tried to sit up, but he was too weak. What you taught me, Jasmine said, checking the dosage one final time, that the system doesn't care about rules, only results. Victor's eyes widened in understanding, then fury. You'll lose your medical license, your FBI credentials, everything, maybe. But 47,000 people lost more. She injected the sedative into his IV line. Victor's mouth opened to shout, but the drugs hit faster than his voice could carry. His eyes rolled back. 18 minutes starting now. Jasmine worked fast. She used his fingerprint to unlock his phone, used his phone to access his penthouse security system, used the security system to disable the alarms and cameras. Then she called James Carter. It's done. You have a window. 18 minutes from Mark. Porter. If this goes sideways, it won't. Trust me. I'm a doctor. I know exactly how long he'll be out. She could hear James assembling his team in the background. We're moving, federal warrant in hand. If anyone asks, we had probable cause based on financial records, not biometrics from an unconscious patient. Understood. 17 minutes later, FBI agents entered Victor Ashford's penthouse. The warrant was technically based on financial intelligence, but Jasmine's unauthorized access had given them the exact timing they needed. 15 minutes after that, they opened his safe using the biometric data Jasmine had provided, though officially, they'd claimed Victor's fingerprints were lifted from his office, not his hospital bed. What they found inside wasn't just evidence, it was a confession. Victor Ashford had kept everything. Every buried patent, every bribed official, every calculated death. He'd documented it all in obsessive detail, like a serial killer keeping trophies. Because part of him wanted to be caught, part of him wanted the world to know just how smart he'd been. How he'd beaten a system designed to crush people like Marcus Levine. When Victor Ashford woke 19 minutes after Jasmine had sedated him, James Carter was standing beside his bed. Victor Ashford, also known as Marcus Levine, you're under arrest for identity fraud, securities manipulation, conspiracy to commit murder, and 47,000 counts of negligent homicide. Victor looked at Jasmine. No anger, no surprise, just a kind of tired recognition. You're better than them, he said quietly. Better than me. Don't let this system break you the way it broke me. Jasmine leaned close enough that only he could hear. My sister's name was Maya Porter. She was 23 years old, She had a 4 gigapascals. She wanted to be a teacher, and she died because you buried the treatment that could have saved her. Victor closed his eyes. So no, Jasmine continued. I won't let this system break me. Because I'm going to fix it, starting with you. As federal agents led Victor Ashford away in handcuffs, Jasmine stood in the hospital hallway and finally, for the first time in 5 years, let herself cry. For Maya, for the 47,000, for every person who died because someone decided their life wasn't worth the cost of saving, and for herself, for the doctor who'd had to become something darker to catch a monster. But the darkest truth was still coming, and it would change everything she thought she knew about justice, revenge, and the price of both. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. By 1:45 p.m., Jasmine knew something was wrong. She sat in the FBI field office, watching Jennifer Moss pace like a caged animal. James Carter was on 3 different phone calls simultaneously, each one seeming to go worse than the last. What's happening? Jasmine demanded. Moss's expression was grave. Victor's legal team filed an emergency motion. They're claiming the evidence from his safe was obtained illegally. We had a warrant, based on financial intelligence, which conveniently came hours after you sedated him without consent and accessed his phone. Moss sat down heavily. Jasmine, they're arguing that you violated doctor-patient confidentiality, performed an unauthorized medical procedure, and facilitated an illegal search. The blood drained from Jasmine's face. That's insane. He's a wanted criminal, a murderer. He's also a patient who was under your medical care. And his lawyers are very good at making insane sound reasonable. James Carter hung up his phones. His expression said everything. The judge is sympathetic to their argument, he said quietly. She's ordering a hearing. Until then, all evidence obtained from the safe is inadmissible. That's everything, Jasmine whispered. Without that evidence, we have nothing but DNA that proves he's Marcus Levine. And Marcus Levine is legally dead. Exactly, Moss's voice was bitter. Victor Ashford, the billionaire, might be the same person as Marcus Levine, the convict, but without evidence of crimes committed as Victor Ashford, we can't charge him with anything except identity fraud. Maximum sentence, 5 years. With his lawyers and his money, he'll serve 18 months in minimum security. Jasmine felt the world tilting. 47,000 people, and he walks in 18 months. Unless we can find another way. Victor Ashford was released on $50 million bail 6 hours later. The press called it a travesty. His lawyers called it justice. Jasmine called it a failure. She sat in her apartment that night, staring at case files spread across her coffee table. There had to be something, some thread she'd missed. Some evidence that didn't depend on her unauthorized access. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Porter, this is Catherine Ashford, Victor's wife. Jasmine sat up straight. She'd researched Catherine during her investigation. 39 years old, former model, married to Victor for 3 years, no children, no apparent involvement in his business dealings. Mrs. Ashford, what can I do for you? I need to see you, tonight. Alone, there's something you need to know about my husband. Every instinct, Jasmine had screamed, trap. But desperate people make desperate choices. Where? They met at a 24-hour diner in Queens. Catherine Ashford looked nothing like her magazine photos. No makeup, hair pulled back, expensive clothes replaced by jeans and a hoodie. She looked terrified. Thank you for coming, Catherine said, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. I wasn't sure you would. Mrs. Ashford, Catherine, please. She looked up, and Jasmine saw something in her eyes she recognized. Fear, deep, bone-cold fear. I know what Victor is, what he's done, and I know he's going to walk free. You could testify, as his wife. You have knowledge of. I'm dead if I testify. Catherine's voice was flat. Matter of fact. Victor doesn't make threats. He makes arrangements. 3 weeks after we got married, I mentioned leaving him. Just mentioned it. The next day, my sister was in a car accident, brake failure. She survived, but the message was clear. Jasmine felt ice in her veins. Why are you here? Catherine reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. Because I'm already dead. I just haven't stopped breathing yet. She slid the drive across the table. Victor keeps backups. Obsessive backups. He doesn't trust anyone, not even his own security systems. So he keeps physical copies of everything. Financial records, communications, kill orders. Kill orders? That's what he calls them. Decisions about which patents to bury, which treatments to kill. He literally refers to it as strategic mortality management. Catherine's voice cracked. He has spreadsheets, Dr. Porter. Spreadsheets that calculate the optimal number of deaths to maximize profit without triggering federal investigation. Jasmine stared at the USB drive like it was a live grenade. Where did you get this? Victor has a private office in our home. I'm not supposed to go in there. But last night, after he was released, he got drunk, started talking, bragging, about how he'd beaten you, how he'd beaten the FBI, how untouchable he was. Catherine's hands were shaking now. He said he was going to make an example of you, to send a message to anyone else who thought they could touch him. He's already made arrangements. What kind of arrangements? The kind that end with you dying in a car accident, or a mugging gone wrong, or any of the dozen other ways that people inconvenient to Victor Ashford seem to die. Jasmine's blood went cold. He told you this. He told me everything. Because he knows I can't tell anyone. Because if I do, I'm next. Catherine pushed the USB drive closer. But maybe you can. Maybe you can stop him. Because God knows I can't. Catherine, if you give me this, you need protection. FBI witness protection. We can. No. Catherine stood abruptly. I was never here. We never spoke. And if anyone asks, I don't know anything about any USB drive. Catherine, my sister lives in Portland. She has 2 kids. 6 and 8 years old. Beautiful kids. Catherine's eyes were wet. If I testify, if I go into witness protection, Victor will know, and those kids will die. So I'm going home. I'm going to pour myself a very large glass of wine, and I'm going to pretend that I'm still just a trophy wife who doesn't know anything. She walked to the door, then turned back. But you, Dr. Porter, you can stop him. You can make sure my cowardice meant something. Then she was gone, disappearing into the New York night. Jasmine sat alone with the USB drive, knowing that everything had just changed again. For better or worse, she couldn't yet tell. The contents of the USB drive were worse than anything Jasmine had imagined. Catherine had been telling the truth. Victor Marcus, whoever he really was, had documented everything with the meticulous detail of someone who believed he was untouchable. Financial records showing exactly how much money he'd made from each buried patent. Communications with pharmaceutical executives discussing optimal mortality corridors. Literal spreadsheets calculating death tolls versus profit margins, and something else. Something that made Jasmine's hands go numb. A file labeled Liability Management, Porter J. She clicked it open. Inside were photographs of her apartment, her car, her daily route to the hospital, timestamps showing she'd been under surveillance for weeks, maybe months. and a document dated 3 days ago, before Victor's heart attack, titled Contingency Protocol. The contents were clinical, methodical, terrifying. Subject: Dr. Jasmine Porter, 29, trauma surgeon, suspected FBI consultant, threat level, critical recommended action, permanent removal, staged as accident. Timeline: upon completion of Europa Pharma acquisition, budget allocated $500,000. Contractor redacted. Backup protocols. If primary fails, target Sisters Memorial Scholarship Fund to draw subject into vulnerable position. Jasmine's vision blurred. He'd known. Even before the heart attack, Victor had known she was investigating him, and he'd planned to kill her. The date on the document was October 12th. Today was October 19th. The Europa deal had been scheduled to close on October 18th, the night of his heart attack. She'd been 24 hours away from being murdered. Her phone rang. James Carter. Porter, where are you? Home. Why? Stay there. Lock your doors. We're sending a protection detail. James, what's happening? Victor's gone. He cut off his ankle monitor 40 minutes ago. Disappeared from his penthouse. We have units searching, but... He paused. Jasmine, his lawyers withdrew from his case an hour ago. All of them. Simultaneously. What does that mean? It means they know something we don't, and whatever it is, it scared them enough to violate attorney-client privilege and run. Jasmine looked at the document on her screen. The contractor's name was still redacted, but there was a phone number. A burner phone, probably, but still. James, I need you to trace a number for me. She read it off. Heard him typing. That number pinged a cell tower in Brooklyn 20 minutes ago. Porter, that's 3 blocks from your apartment. The lights in her apartment went out. All of them. Simultaneously. Jasmine's training kicked in. She dropped to the floor, phone still pressed to her ear, crawling toward her bedroom, where she kept a go bag and her father's old service weapon. James, my power just cut. Jesus Christ, SWAT is en route. ETA 12 minutes. Do not engage. Do you hear me? Hide and wait for... The line went dead. Jasmine reached her bedroom, grabbed the gun from her nightstand safe, checked the magazine, fully loaded. She'd been trained for this at Quantico, but training and reality were very different things. A sound from the living room, soft, professional, someone who knew how to move silently. Jasmine's heart hammered. She had 2 choices: hide and hope SWAT arrived in time, or take control of the situation. She thought about Maya, about the 47,000, about Catherine Ashford, too terrified to save herself, about every person who'd ever been made powerless by people like Victor. Jasmine Porter had spent 6 months being invisible, being underestimated, being dismissed. She was done being invisible. She moved to the doorway, weapon raised, using the ambient light from the street to track shadows. There a figure, male, approximately 6 feet, moving with tactical precision through her apartment. Not Victor. Victor was smart enough to hire someone else to do his killing. FBI, Jasmine shouted, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. Drop your weapon and identify yourself. The figure froze, then laughed. You're not FBI, Dr. Porter. You're a consultant, which means you have no arrest authority, no backup, and no chance. The voice was familiar. Jasmine's mind raced, placing it. Then she had it. David Liu, Victor's CFO. The man who'd laughed in Mandarin about cheating her father during that first dinner. David, this is insane. SWAT is 3 minutes out. You'll never make it. I'm not here to kill you. A light flared. David Liu stood in her living room, hands visible, weapon holstered. He was holding up his phone, screen glowing. "I'm here to make you an offer." Jasmine kept her weapon trained on him. "You have 30 seconds before I shoot you for breaking and entering." "Victor's not the monster here," David said quickly. "The system is. And he's offering you a chance to change it. By killing 47,000 people. By surviving long enough to fix it properly." David pulled up something on his phone. "Look at this. Really look at it." Against every instinct, Jasmine glanced at the screen. It showed a bank transfer, $50 million. Recipient, Porter Medical Research Foundation. A foundation that didn't exist. Yet, "Victor's offering you $50 million to walk away," David said. "Not for him, for you. To start a real research foundation. To fund the treatments he buried. To save the people the system is killing right now while we fight about what happened in the past." Jasmine's grip on her weapon wavered. "This is a bribe. This is a choice. You can spend the next 5 years in court trying to convict a man who's already beaten you, fighting a legal system designed to protect people like him, watching him walk free while more people die." David moved closer, slowly. "Or you can take his money. $50 million, no strings attached. Use it to actually save lives. To build something that matters. To do what you became a doctor to do. And Victor disappears, leaves the country. You never see him again. He keeps his freedom. You keep your life. Everyone wins." Sirens in the distance, getting closer. "You have 60 seconds to decide, Dr. Porter. Take the money and change the system from inside it. Or stick to your principles and watch him walk free anyway while you have nothing." Jasmine thought about Maya, about Catherine, about every person she could save with $50 million in research funding. And she thought about Marcus Levine, a man who'd learned that the system only cared about profit and had become the worst version of what killed him. The sirens were louder now, maybe 2 blocks away. "Tell Victor," Jasmine said quietly, "that he can take his $50 million and his freedom and his new life and shove them straight to hell." She pulled the trigger. The shot went high, deliberately, into the wall 6 inches from David's head, close enough to make him dive for cover, close enough to make her point. "That's my answer. Now get out before SWAT gets here and I let them shoot you for real." David scrambled to his feet, genuine fear on his face for the first time. "You're making a mistake." "No, I'm making a choice. The same choice Maya would have made. The same choice those 47,000 people would have made if anyone had given them one." David ran, crashed through her apartment door just as SWAT vehicles screeched to a stop outside. Jasmine set down her weapon, raised her hands, and waited for the cavalry to arrive. She'd just turned down $50 million and possibly signed her own death warrant. But she'd done it while looking herself in the mirror. And that was something Victor Ashford, Marcus Levine, whoever he really was, could never buy with all his blood money. But the real twist wasn't David's offer. The real twist was what Victor had been planning all along. And Jasmine wouldn't discover it until it was almost too late to stop it. The trial lasted 3 months. Every day, Jasmine sat in the gallery watching justice move with the speed of continental drift. Lawyers argued about admissibility. Witnesses were cross-examined until words lost meaning. The media turned it into a circus. But the evidence from Catherine's USB drive was bulletproof. Financial records, communication logs, literal spreadsheets calculating optimal death tolls for maximum profit. Victor's own words, in his own files, condemning him beyond any reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for 12 minutes. Guilty on all 47,000 counts of negligent homicide. Guilty on securities fraud. Guilty on conspiracy. guilty on every single charge the prosecution could prove. Judge Patricia Hernandez didn't smile when she read the sentence. Mr. Levine, you have used your intelligence, your resources, and your freedom to commit one of the largest mass casualty events in corporate history. You calculated human death the way others calculate quarterly earnings. For that, this court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, to be served in a maximum security federal facility. Victor showed no emotion, just the same cold calculation he'd shown when Jasmine first confronted him in that hospital room. But as marshals led him away, he turned and met Jasmine's eyes one final time. He didn't mouth words, didn't make threats, he just smiled. The smile of a man who knew something no one else did. Jasmine returned to surgery, but the operating room felt different now. Every incision reminded her of the ones she'd made in Victor's chest. Every life she saved came with the memory of the 47,000 she'd been too late to help. Maya's face haunted her dreams. Not the skeletal, dying Maya from those final months, but the vibrant 23-year-old who'd taught kindergarten and baked elaborate birthday cakes and believed the world was fundamentally good. You think you won, Maya would say in these dreams, but he's still out there, the system that killed me, that killed all of us. 6 months after the verdict, the nightmares stopped. That should have been Jasmine's first warning. The package arrived on a Tuesday, plain brown paper, no return address, delivered to the hospital. Inside, a burner phone with a single video file queued to play. Jasmine's hands trembled as she pressed play. Victor's face filled the screen, but not the Victor from the trial, gaunt and defeated. This was recorded earlier, before his arrest, maybe even before his heart attack. Hello, Dr. Porter. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or in prison. Either way, congratulations, you won. His smile was genuine, almost warm. But I want you to understand something before you celebrate. Everything you think you know about me is true. I buried those patents. I killed those people. I built an empire on calculated death. He leaned closer to the camera. And I'd do it again, every single time. Because the system that killed those 47,000 people, it's still out there, still operating, still choosing profit over human life every single day. Victor pulled out a file, thick, official-looking. This contains evidence of 17 pharmaceutical companies currently burying life-saving treatments, real cures for diseases that kill millions. I have the patents, the research, the internal communications where executives literally discuss acceptable mortality rates. He set the file down. I documented everything, Dr. Porter. Not because I was planning to be a whistleblower, but because I wanted to prove a point. That the system is so corrupt, so broken, that even when someone exposes it completely, nothing changes. Jasmine realized she'd stopped breathing. So here's my gift to you, Doctor. The file is in a safe deposit box. Key and location are in the envelope with this phone. 17 cures, 17 companies, 17 chances to keep fighting a war you can't win. Victor's expression hardened. But here's what you need to understand. The moment you access that box, the pharmaceutical companies involved will know. They have surveillance, they have lawyers, and they have the same contractors I used, the ones who were coming for you that night in your apartment. He leaned back. So you have a choice, Dr. Porter. Walk away, live your life. Save the patients in front of you and ignore the millions dying because corporations decided their lives weren't profitable enough to matter. His smile returned, cold, knowing. Or take the file, fight the real war, and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if every car accident is just an accident, every illness just bad luck, every death just unfortunate timing. The video paused on his face. I couldn't change the system, doctor. It crushed me, turned me into exactly what it needed me to be, a monster so obvious that everyone could focus on punishing me instead of fixing what created me. Victor's final words were barely a whisper, but maybe you're different. Maybe you're strong enough to stay human while fighting monsters. Or maybe you'll learn what I learned, that the only way to survive in a broken system is to break with it. The screen went black. A single line of text appeared. Box 647. First National Bank, Lexington Avenue. Key enclosed. Your move, doctor. Jasmine sat in her car for an hour, staring at the envelope containing the key. She thought about Maya, about the 47,000, about Catherine Ashford, hiding somewhere under a new name, about every person who'd ever been told their life wasn't worth the cost of saving. She thought about Victor's smile, that final, knowing smile in the courtroom. He'd planned this, all of it, his arrest, his trial, his conviction. All of it was just the opening move in a game that would outlive him, and he'd made Jasmine the next player, whether she wanted to be or not. Her phone rang. James Carter. Porter, we have a problem. Someone just tried to access Victor's financial records from inside the prison. Computer forensics traced it back to his cell, but he's in solitary. No computer access. It's impossible. James, Victor's not done. He was never done. She looked at the envelope again, at the choice Victor had given her, because the real twist wasn't that Victor had been secretly good all along. It was that he'd been right about the system, and wrong about how to fight it. And now Jasmine had to decide, would she become what she'd hunted? Or would she find a third way that Victor's broken mind could never imagine? She opened the envelope. Inside was a key, a location, and a handwritten note in Victor's precise script. Welcome to the war, Dr. Porter. Try not to lose yourself the way I did. P.S. The first company on the list. They buried the cure for acute lymphoblastic leukemia in 2019. Maya's disease. That's not a coincidence. I've been watching you longer than you've been watching me. Don't waste it. Jasmine's hands shook with rage, grief, and something she couldn't name. She started her car. She had 17 cures to find, 17 companies to expose, 17 fights ahead. But this time, she'd do it differently than Victor. She wouldn't become the monster to fight monsters. She'd build something he never could, a coalition. Whistleblowers, journalists, patients, families, people who'd lost someone to buried cures. She'd make it so loud, so public, so undeniable that the system couldn't ignore it. Victor had fought alone and lost himself. Jasmine would fight with an army and keep her soul. As she drove toward Lexington Avenue, toward that safe deposit box and everything it contained, Jasmine made herself a promise. She'd win this war, not by becoming Victor Ashford, but by being everything he could never be. Visible, vulnerable, and unbreakable. Maya's name would be first on every victory, and Victor's lesson would be remembered. Some battles require you to become what you hate, but the war requires you to stay human, even when it costs everything.